There's an important update in 2022 this year. There are Arizona bills that impact Sedona short-term rentals, and I'm going to tell you all about them. Hi, I'm Chad McMahon, and I've lived in Sedona for over 30 years. I've been a Sedona-specific realtor for almost 20 years, and I specialize in income-producing properties such as short-term rentals, as well as luxury real estate. So several bills, again, that greatly impact short-term rentals in Sedona have recently passed and are in the early stages, meaning that these bills are not law, not yet, if ever, and many of them, or possibly all of them, will likely not become law. In order to become law, they have a long way to go, and eventually they need to be signed and approved by the Arizona governor. So the following is it's a quick and dirty summary of the short-term rental bills that are in motion. Rather than having this be a 3-hour long video, I want this to just be several minutes. So it's just boom, boom, boom. So here we go. So HB 2711, it passed February 14th, and it requires a business license. It limits the number of short-term rentals based on percentage of total residential units in town. SB 1168 passed February 15th, and it requires a minimum of a $500,000 liability insurance policy. And by the way, with all of these that I'm going through, these are some of the requirements that they have. There are other ones as well, but some of the redundant ones, I'm just saying one time rather than saying the redundant ones every time. HB 2234, it passed February 15th as well, and it more clearly defines what the penalties are to landlords for tenant violations, such as noise complaints and things like that. So really quick, I'll go through these. The greater of $500 penalty or 1 night's rent, whichever one's greater, for the first verified violation. $1,000 or 2 nights rent for the second violation, and $3,500 or 3 nights rent for the third violation. And also there are penalties in this HB 2234 for not providing owner contact information. So it kind of gets clearer about that kind of stuff. HB 2663 passed February 16th. Tries to change the zoning of these properties away from residential and towards, commercial. And so they're doing that to give the city more control over what happens with the property. Also, it's saying a minimum of 2 nights, so no 1 night short-term rental stays, 2-night minimum, and stiffer penalties to homeowners for tenant noise violations. And they're getting away from those 1-night penalties, and I get the point on this one is that, the parties and things like that, there's like everyone comes out for 1 night. It's more common with those. HB 2625 passed February 16th, and it requires owner or contact designee to post contact info on a sign, a smaller sign, like less than 2 feet by 2 feet, but on a sign at the property, as well as provide their contact info to all homeowners within 300 feet of the property. And so that's everything as of right now, as of February 19th, 2022. So a couple of quick things. How does a passed bill become law? How does it become legal and an actual legal requirement? So as of right now, none of the above mentioned bills have passed a floor vote, and they haven't moved across the aisle for a second vote, which is what's required. And then after the second vote, they still need to be approved and signed by the governor, who can also veto, and then there are other things that can happen too. If any bills are amended, they have to be voted on again, and on and on. So anything that gets a green stamp all across the board must be approved and signed by the governor. So he or she can sign it, veto it, and then assuming that it's signed and approved by the governor, then there's a 90-day stretch where a bill can be legally challenged. So they have all these checks in place. Now, I've got a couple of perspectives on this. The first one is the realtor perspective and kind of more of a legal perspective. which is that many of these bills are just unconstitutional, and they disregard basic rights such as our right to privacy. So some of these bills, they treat investors more like criminals, less like business owners and operators. And that's a terrible thing. And there's just so little consideration towards that. The locals' perspective, and of course, you're going to have locals that are going to disagree with me, but there are a lot of us that feel this way. That, up until about 2 years ago, there were not enough beds, rentable beds in town, in Sedona for visitors. And so especially around holidays and busy season and all of that, some visitors would have to stay 1 or 2 towns away just that they could be close to Sedona. And they were out of hotel rooms, they were out of short-term rentals and the whole bit. So now, thanks to short-term rentals, there are enough beds, and they're comfortable, and there are a lot of choices, and so people can get almost exactly what they want when they stay in Sedona. And that's really important because our local economy, our local industry is tourism. So we need to support those tourists. We need to bring them in town and give them a nice place to stay. And hotels weren't cutting it, and we didn't have enough beds, so now we do. Also, know that whatever the end result of these bills that are in motion, as well as the future bills that we're going to see pop up, there is a high demand and a substantial need for short-term rentals in Sedona. So the short-term rental opportunity for investors, it will continue. Okay, no matter what happens with these bills, the short-term rental opportunity will continue here in Sedona. And I'm going to continue to monitor these bills as well as other things that are going to influence the short-term rental market for investors. Beyond that, for anything further, just schedule a Zoom call or call me directly, and we can go over your needs and get started. All right, thanks a lot.